I've been around long enough to remember when a young couple could buy a piece of land, put up a fence, run a few cows, and call it a ranch without taking out a loan against their grandchildren's future. These days, you whisper the word ranch in a real estate office, and the broker pulls out a calculator and starts multiplying until his eyes water. But here's what nobody wants to tell you. There are still corners of this country, 12 of them as it turns out, where enormous pieces of land sell for less than a used pickup truck, sometimes less than a decent mattress. We're talking 40 acres in Nevada for under $20,000, 20 acres in Texas for under $16,000, 5 acres in Colorado with views of a 14,000-foot peak for under $9,000. And yes, California is on this list. Actual California, with a California zip code, 20 to 40 acres for under $35,000. Before you get too excited, let me be straight with you the way nobody in the real estate business ever will be. This land is cheap for reasons, real reasons. Remoteness, no water hookups, no electricity, no paved roads, brutal climates, and distances from civilization that would test a person's resolve on a good day and break them on a bad one. Every single location in this video has a catch. We're going to tell you what the catch is every time, because that's the only honest way to have this conversation. But for the right person, with the right plan, the right tools, and the right attitude about solitude, these 12 places are the closest thing left to the old American idea of owning real land, real acreage, sky in every direction, nobody telling you what to do with any of it. Before we get into it, if this is your first time at Estate Insight Hub, hit subscribe and the notification bell. We find the real estate opportunities that the industry would rather you never hear about and break them down honestly. Next week, we're covering something just as unusual as this. Now let's go through all 12. Hudspeth County, Texas. Out in the West Texas desert, about 85 miles east of El Paso, sits a county so empty that the coyotes outnumber the residents, and the wind has more opinions than the local government. In Hudspeth County, subdivisions like Sunset Ranches and Sierra Preto have been selling 20-acre parcels for years. Price range, $5,000 to $16,000. The county assessor values many of the 10-acre mini ranches below $4,600, which tells you exactly what the local government thinks the land is worth. Annual property taxes run about $80 a year. $80. That's the same amount a city dweller spends on one mediocre dinner. The catch is what you'd expect in far west Texas. No electricity, no water hookup, no paved access on most parcels, no neighbors within shouting distance. You want water? You haul it in a tank from Sierra Blanca or Van Horn, towns that are themselves a study in minimum viable civilization. You want power? You go solar. You want internet? You buy a satellite dish that works when it feels like working. What you get in exchange? Sierra Blanca Mountain to the south, the Finley Mountains to the west. Mountain views that cost 6 figures to access anywhere else in the country. Stars at night that look like someone punched holes in a black tarp. Silence so complete you can hear your own thoughts from 40 years ago. Zoning is essentially non-existent. RV, mobile home, shipping container, tent. Nobody is driving out to ask questions because there's nobody to drive out. Hudspeth County has never had a stoplight, a shopping mall, or a reason to make national news for anything pleasant. If you're looking to disappear while technically remaining inside the American tax system, that's exactly the pedigree you want. Costilla County, Colorado. Down in southern Colorado against the New Mexico border, in the stretch called the San Luis Valley, there's a place where 5 acres of Rocky Mountain land sells for $5,000 to $9,000. Yes, Colorado, the same state where a Denver condo costs more than a small island. Subdivisions like San Luis Valley Ranches, Rio Grande Ranches, and Sangre de Cristo Ranches have been selling these parcels for decades. Taxes are under $100 a year. Owner financing is available on almost every lot, a few hundred down and a couple hundred a month. The views of Mount Blanca, 4th highest peak in Colorado at over 14,000 feet, and the Sangre de Cristo Range will ruin every other sunset you see for the rest of your life. The catch here is more specific than Hudspeth. The land sits at 7,500 feet elevation. Winters are long and mean. The water table is low enough that drilling a well can cost $15,000 on a good day and $30,000 on a bad one. And Costilla County has building codes strict enough to make a Swiss bureaucrat weep with pride. You cannot live in an RV permanently. You cannot build a shed out of scrap lumber and call it a home. You need a permit, a septic system, and a structure that meets minimum square footage requirements. Requirements that were tightened specifically because too many optimistic buyers showed up and tried to homestead in a plywood box in the snow. There's also a layer of history here worth knowing. Much of the San Luis Valley was part of the Sangre de Cristo land grant from the Mexican government in 1844. The original Hispanic families have been fighting to hold on to it ever since. The modern subdivisions were carved out in the 1970s by developers who flew in buyers on weekend junkets, served them barbecue, promised paved roads and community pools, and disappeared with the down payments when none of it materialized. If you buy here, understand you're buying into that history, and that the families who have lived on this land for 6 generations aren't universally enthusiastic about newcomers showing up with RVs and calling it a ranch. Luna County, New Mexico. South into the Chihuahuan Desert, where Deming sits like a tired cowboy on Interstate 10, and the land runs in every direction until it hits a mountain or the Mexican border. In Luna County, subdivisions like Deming Ranchettes and Sunshine Valley Ranchettes, 1-acre parcels sell for $1,500 to $4,000. 1 acre, for less than the deposit on a New York studio apartment. 5 to 10-acre tracts run $5,000 to $15,000. Owner financing starts at $50 a month. The average cost per acre across all cheap parcels in Luna County is about $1,400, which is not a number. It's an insult to every person who has ever paid a mortgage. The reasons are the usual west of the 100th meridian problems. No water, no power, no paved roads on most parcels, and a climate that spends 6 months trying to cook you and the other 6 trying to blow you to Arizona. The Florida mountains to the southeast and the Cooks Range to the north give the landscape a stark, silent beauty that either speaks to you immediately or doesn't. And if it doesn't, southern New Mexico probably isn't your place. Zoning in the rural county areas is almost completely unrestricted. Build what you want, live in an RV, run livestock, and nobody in the county office is driving out to check because the roads are terrible and nobody has time. Deming itself, population 14,000, handles groceries, a Walmart, and medical care. The locals are friendly in the specific way people who live in hard places tend to be. They'll help you change a tire on a dirt road, but they'll also remember everything about you for the next 30 years. Elko County, Nevada. Up into the Great Basin, that enormous sagebrush-covered expanse that most Americans fly over without ever looking down. Elko County covers a chunk of northeastern Nevada, roughly the size of Vermont, with a population density of about 3 people per square mile. In subdivisions around Montello, Wendover, and Jackpot, 40-acre parcels sell for $10,000 to $20,000. 40 acres! More land than most people walk across in a lifetime. Enough room to lose a horse, a dog, and your mind on the same afternoon. Nevada has no state income tax, which means if you can work remotely from your sagebrush kingdom, you keep what you earn. Property taxes on rural parcels run $50 to $200 a year. You can hunt mule deer and antelope on your own property. You can build with minimal oversight. The Ruby Mountains to the south are some of the most beautiful and overlooked ranges in the lower 48. Alpine lakes, good trout fishing, trails almost nobody uses. The catch? The nearest grocery store might be 70 miles away. Cell service is theoretical. Winters bring snow and wind that can bury a road for days. The land north of Elko toward Mountain City is some of the most genuinely empty territory in America. It's cow country, antelope country, and if you're honest with yourself, loneliness country. Know the difference before you sign. Apache County, Arizona, northeast corner of Arizona, near the Navajo Nation and the New Mexico border. Around the town of Concho and St. John's, 1-acre parcels go for $1,000 to $3,000, and 5-acre parcels for $3,000 to $10,000. The land sits at about 6,000 feet elevation, 4 actual seasons, mild summers that don't melt your fillings, a dusting of snow in winter. This is not the brutal Phoenix Low Desert. These are subdivisions that were platted since the 1960s, which is important to understand because it means many of them were created before modern subdivisions subdivision regulations existed. Here is the most important thing I will tell you about Apache County. Hire a title company and a local surveyor before you sign anything. I cannot stress this enough. Half the lawsuits in the county courthouse are about old Apache County paper subdivisions where a buyer purchased a lot, showed up to build, and discovered the nearest legal road was on the other side of 3 other people's property. Access issues, title quirks, unrecorded easements, they are common here. The zoning is loose, the taxes are low, the neighbors are scarce, the painted desert is an hour away. Apache County is a mix of Navajo, Apache, Hispanic, and Anglo communities that have shared this ground for 400 years. If you buy here, learn to say hello in Navajo. It goes further than you'd expect. Cibola County, New Mexico, west of Albuquerque, wrapping around ancient volcanic country and high grasslands south of Grants. In subdivisions like Enchanted Mesa Estates and Rio Grande Estates, 40-acre parcels go for $12,000 to $25,000, and 5 to 10-acre lots sell below $10,000. The land is high desert at 6,000 to 7,000 feet with juniper and pinon pine across rolling hills. What keeps prices permanently low is the combination of isolation and the fact that most surrounding land is either federal BLM holdings or Zuni and Acoma Pueblo reservations, which means development in every direction is essentially impossible and your views are guaranteed to stay untouched for as long as you own the land. You will never hear a neighbor's lawnmower. You will never listen to someone else's music through a wall. The sky at night is so full of stars, it looks like someone punched holes in a black tarp and hung it above you. The downside, if your well comes up dry, you're hauling water from Grants for the rest of your natural life. And in northern New Mexico, hauling water is a skill you develop, or a habit that eventually ends you. Grants itself was a uranium boomtown in the 1950s, went bust in the 70s, and has been finding its identity ever since. The Acoma Sky City, continuously inhabited since around 1150 AD, stands on a mesa to the east as a reminder that people have been trying to live on this land for a very long time before you got here. Valencia County, New Mexico, just south of Albuquerque. While the areas near the city have gone through the usual American cycle of speculation and inflation, the eastern and western stretches of Valencia County still hold 5 to 10 acre parcels for $3,000 to $12,000. Subdivisions like Rio del Oro, platted in the infamous paper lot scandals of the 1960s, are still selling off remnant parcels at prices that reflect what they actually are. Here is the warning. Rio del Oro and its cousins were sold in the 1960s to out-of-state buyers under promises of paved roads, community centers, golf courses, and utilities that existed only in glossy brochures mailed to retirees in Chicago and Cleveland. None of it materialized. Roads were never built. Utilities were never extended. Many of the lots are stranded in the desert with no legal access whatsoever. Do not, under any circumstances, buy a Rio del Oro lot sight unseen from an online auction. That is how people end up owning a piece of paper that corresponds to a patch of sand they can never legally reach. That said, if you do your homework, verify access in person, run a title search, and find a parcel with clean title and real legal road access, you're looking at some of the cheapest buildable land within an hour of a major American city anywhere in the country. Lincoln County, Nevada. Eastern Nevada, one of the emptiest places in the lower 48. The entire county, 10,000 square miles, has a population smaller than a mid-sized high school. Around Caliente and the subdivisions along US Highway 93, 40-acre parcels sell for $8,000 to $18,000. Occasional larger tracts of 80 to 160 acres go under $50,000. The land is high basin country, sagebrush and juniper, elevations between 4,000 and 6,000 feet. Winters are cold but dry. Summers are hot but not brutal. Wildlife includes mule deer, antelope, and wild horses that wander through the property like they own the place. Because historically, they did. Almost no zoning restrictions outside town limits. Build what you want, how you want, with minimal interference from anyone except your own common sense. Annual property taxes on a 40-acre parcel run $80 to $200. Pioche, the county seat, is a genuine 19th century mining town that has been trying to fall down gracefully for about 120 years and hasn't quite managed it. If you want to disappear from American civilization while technically remaining inside America, Lincoln County is where you go. Bring a satellite phone, 2 spare tires, and someone who knows how to fix a water pump. Presidio County, Texas. Big Bend country, along the Mexican border. Most Texans have never visited it, and most Americans couldn't find it on a map, and that's exactly why the land is still cheap. Outside Marfa, which has become a strange art colony for people with too much money and an unhealthy relationship with minimalist sculpture, the surrounding desert holds 40 to 100 acre parcels for $20,000 to $40,000. Smaller lots in the Terlingua Ranch area run $4,000 to $15,000. High Chihuahuan Desert at 4,000 to 5,000 feet, the Chinati Mountains on the horizon, enormous skies that hurt to look at, and the kind of remoteness that either heals you or breaks you within the first 6 months, depending on your constitution and what you're running from. No municipal water, no grid electricity in most places, nearest hospital 90 miles away in Alpine, but the Rio Grande is close enough to drive down to on a whim and stare across at Mexico. The night sky over the Chinati Mountains is officially designated one of the darkest in North America. Terlingua, the old Quicksilver mining town at the south end of the county, holds the most famous chili cook-off in America every November. For the rest of the year, it's the kind of place where you can go a week without seeing a stranger and consider that a successful week. Modoc County, California. Here it is, the one that surprises people. California. The same California where a teardown in Los Angeles costs $2 million and a parking space in San Francisco costs more than a family home in most of the country. But up in the far northeastern corner of the state, pressed against the Oregon and Nevada borders, sits Modoc County. And around the town of Alturas, in the high desert Surprise Valley, 20 to 40 acre parcels sell for $15,000 to $35,000. That's California. Actual California. With a California zip code, California scenery, and no Southern California prices attached to any of it. Modoc County has a population of about 8,000 people. Winters are long and snowy, summers are short. The nearest interstate is hours away. The state of California has done very little to encourage growth out there, and Modoc County consistently votes the opposite direction from Sacramento, which Sacramento has noticed. If you're the kind of person who wants cheap land and empty horizons, that is not a problem. It's a feature. The land includes genuine ranch country with hay meadows, springs, and grazing rights. It still looks the way California did in the 1930s, before the freeways, before the subdivisions, before the state became shorthand for everything that happened to the west. Huerfano County, Colorado. Back to Colorado, because the state has more cheap land than it lets on. Just north of Costilla County, Huerfano County offers high desert and mountain foothill country, where 5 to 35 acre parcels sell for $10,000 to $50,000. Subdivisions like Forbes Park and Wild Horse Mesa were platted in the 1970s boom, when developers convinced a generation of Texans and Oklahomans that they needed a mountain cabin and could afford one. Many of those developments never fully built out, which means you can still buy a 35-acre parcel with pinyon and pine forest, mountain views, and seasonal creeks for about what a new pickup truck costs, sometimes less. Taxes are under $300 a year on most parcels. The land sits at 8,000 to 9,000 feet elevation. Winters are real, and the roads can be impassable for weeks. And by impassable, I mean you do not leave until spring, so stock your pantry accordingly. Many subdivisions have homeowner associations with covenants. Read them before you buy, because some will tell you what color to paint your cabin, how many goats you're allowed to own, and charge dues for roads they don't actually maintain. Walsenburg, the county seat, has some of the cheapest small-town houses left in Colorado, in case your ranch ambitions need a fallback plan. Mojave County, Arizona. The last one on the list, and arguably the biggest bargain in the whole collection in terms of sheer land per dollar. Mojave County, in the far northwestern corner of Arizona, is the 5th largest county in the United States by area. It covers desert and mountain country larger than several eastern states combined, and emptier than any of them. In vast sections around Kingman, Dolan Springs, Meadview, and Forgotten Paper subdivisions across the Hualapai Valley, 40-acre parcels sell for $8,000 to $18,000. Some parcels in subdivisions like Lake Mead Ranchos, platted in the 1960s on the false promise that Lake Mead would eventually reach the land, which it never did and current drought conditions make impossible, sell for as little as $3,000 for 2 or 3 acres. Low to mid-desert, hot in summer, mild in winter, Joshua trees and creosote bushes and silence you can feel on your skin. Zoning in unincorporated Mojave County is minimal. RV, solar setup, off-grid structure. The county has become a genuine magnet for homesteaders, farmers, off-grid communities, and people who've decided that conventional American civilization is not for them anymore. The catch is significant. Water is scarce, wells are expensive and not always productive, and the summer heat can cook a person in roughly 40 minutes without shade and hydration. There are also occasional issues with abandoned vehicles and neighbors whose relationship with the law is best described as casual. But for 40 acres of the American Southwest for less than a used car, Mojave County is waiting. Kingman sits on Old Route 66 with the Hualapai Mountains to the south and the Colorado River on the western county boundary. The Grand Canyon is close enough for a Saturday visit. Between those landmarks lies some of the most dramatic desert country in the lower 48, subdivided and sold to mailing lists across the country 50 years ago, and still waiting for buyers who understand what they're actually getting. 12 locations. 12 places where an ordinary person with ordinary savings can still own something real. Before you cash in your retirement and head for Hudspeth County with a tent and a dream, here are 6 things that no one in the real estate business is going to tell you for free. First, never buy land sight unseen. Photos lie, drones lie, real estate agents lie with enthusiasm. Drive the property, walk it, look at the road in March and in August. Second, always hire a title company and run a full title search. Many of these parcels have histories: old liens, unpaid taxes, easement disputes, access problems that don't surface until you try to build. A title search costs a few $100s and can save you $20,000. Third, verify legal access. Many cheap rural parcels have prescriptive access, meaning you reach them by crossing other people's land on a handshake agreement that evaporates the moment a new neighbor decides to be difficult. Legal deed access recorded at the county clerk's office is worth paying extra for every single time. Fourth, test for water before you build. Drilling a well in most of these areas costs $10,000 to $40,000, and there's no guarantee you'll hit water at a useful depth or quality. Some parcels in the San Luis Valley have been drilled 3 times before anyone hit anything drinkable. Fifth, understand local zoning and building codes. Some counties like Luna or Hudspeth will let you do almost anything. Others like Costilla or Incorporated Mojave have rules that will surprise you, and the fines for ignoring them are not friendly. Sixth, talk to the neighbors if there are any. Old ranchers, longtime residents, the woman at the gas station, the guy at the hardware store. They know which roads flood, which wells are dry, which developers sold bad parcels, and which roads have a habit of eating tires. The truth is that cheap ranch land in America still exists, and it's not a scam, at least not always. It's just that the land is cheap for reasons: remoteness, lack of water, harsh climate, limited access. And for most people, those reasons are deal breakers, which is exactly why the land is still cheap. But for the right person with the right plan, the right tools, and the right honest relationship with solitude, these 12 places are still the closest thing left to owning a real piece of real country. Thousands of acres of land, millions of square miles of sky, and nobody telling you what to do with any of it. They don't make land anymore. They never did. What they do is carve what was already there into smaller and smaller pieces until the average person can't afford any of it. These 12 places are the exceptions. The places where the knife hasn't quite reached yet because there was no profit in making the cut. Do your research, check your deeds, test your well before you build, and for the love of everything decent, don't buy anything from a website that keeps using the word urgent in red letters.